Before I start, I want to ask you, are you subscribed to my channel? If not, please consider subscribing so you're made aware of new videos on one of the most unique and highly detailed channels in aviation. Let's go flying. Hey everybody, and welcome back to my channel. I'm at gate Charlie 1 at MSP Airport, and I'm about to fly to LaGuardia today. What makes this video different is that I'm taking things to another level by adding air traffic control transmissions. But I won't leave the communications up to viewers' interpretation. Everything is going to be explained. While I do get some great views of Manhattan once my flight gets below the cloud deck at 1,700 feet, I explain what the controllers mean as they guide my A321 today. Alright, here we go. And, as usual, I checked the weather right before I boarded to make my final seat selection. The weather forecast is showing that the wind will be coming from 80 degrees, nearly from the east, which calls for landing on runway 4 with Manhattan on the left side of the plane, so, of course, I made sure that I selected a seat on the left side. While this video focuses on the approach to New York, I'll get started with some ATC here in Minneapolis. We already started our taxi to the runway as instructed by the ground controller, and now the tower controller is going to tell us to line up and wait on runway 12 left. Runway 12 left is being used today by both arrivals and departures, and there's an airplane approaching the runway, but it's 7 miles away from touchdown. That leaves us plenty of time to get on the runway and take off, so the controller tells us about that plane, and to line up on the runway, and to wait. Today, our call sign is Delta 1020. Let's listen in.
Delta 1020, map Charlie 12 left, line up on about a 7-mile funnel.
Wait, 12 left, Delta.
Our pilot understands the situation. Another plane is inbound for this runway, so we won't be spending a lot of time waiting on the runway before we're issued clearance for takeoff by the tower. Once lined up, we can't see behind us, so we have to rely on the tower to issue us takeoff clearance well before that plane lands. The tower assesses the situation. It's been a while since the previous flight took off, so there are no conflicts in the airspace at the departure end of the runway, so the time for takeoff clearance has come. We're told to turn left to a 100-degree heading once we're airborne, and we can take off now with the magical words of cleared for takeoff.
Delta 1020, turn left, heading to 100, runway 12 left, cleared for takeoff.
100, clear to go 12 left, Delta, 1020.
Let's head to LaGuardia. Once airborne, we start the turn to a 100-degree heading and are told to contact the departure controller in another facility.
1020, contact departure, we'll see you.
We'll call departure. Have a good day, Delta 1020.
I'll skip the ATC from the climb and en route phase, but the departure controller will assign us altitudes to climb to and headings to fly out of the Minneapolis area to get to our en route phase of flight, where we talk to high altitude controllers in Minneapolis, Chicago, Cleveland, and New York. While descending into New York, under the control of the High Altitude Center, we tune into LaGuardia ATC, or Automatic Terminal Information Service, an automated radio broadcast of current essential information for pilots. We're required to listen to this before we land. Here's the ATC.
LaGuardia Airport AI System Information Uniform, 195.0. Wind 080 at 6. Visibility 10. 1,700 scattered. Ceiling 2,100 overcast. Temperature wind 8. Dew point 13. Altimeter 3023. Remark. AO2 sea level pressure 238. Pilot runway 4 approach and loop land runway 4. Depart runway 13. LaGuardia class Bravo services. Available on frequency 126.05. Runway 4 precision approach path indicator out of service. Use caution for numerous birds in the vicinity of LaGuardia Airport. Advise on initial contact to have information uniform.
As you heard, essential weather and operational information is heard on ATC, and with it, we learned that we will land on runway 4 using the ILS, or Instrument Landing System. Let's check in with the approach controller to let them know we've received ATC, labeled Uniform.
New York approach, Delta 1020. Just about to cross Beauty at 10,000. We have uniform.
1020 New York approach, thank you, estimate 3023.
323.
We checked in at 10,000 feet over a navigational fix in the sky called Beauty, just east of Allentown, Pennsylvania, in New Jersey. We let the controller know we have ATC uniform, and the controller provided the latest altimeter setting. Letting the controller know we have uniform confirms that we know to land on runway 4 today. The controller then instructs us to slow down.
Delta 1020, reduce speed to 250.
Slow to 250, Delta 1020.
We need to be sequenced between other arrivals today and are told to slow to 250 knots.
Delta 1020, descend to maintain 8,000, flight present heading for sequence.
Descend to 8,000, present heading, Delta 1020.
This heading doesn't last for too long, and a few minutes later, the controller sees that a turn to a 70-degree heading will place us where we need to be behind the traffic ahead.
Delta 1020, turn left heading 070.
Left 070, Delta 1020.
This 70-degree heading brings us towards the instrument landing system for runway 4 for a straighten approach. Okay, this video is a little different than my other videos because all we see are clouds, but I think it's a really good way to focus on how ATC works to get us into LaGuardia. Oh, and as you know, I keep my eyes open for anything interesting, and I spotted this United Airlines 777 from Tokyo descending into Newark Airport. Our current altitude keeps us above flights bound for Newark. Newark is to the west of LaGuardia, so Newark arrivals are kept lower than LaGuardia arrivals from the west. Kennedy Airport is to the east of LaGuardia, and there's another layer of arrivals to JFK that are kept above both Newark and LaGuardia arrivals. This is busy airspace. We know from ATC that the lowest level of clouds is at 1,700 feet. Today's instrument approach has us join the approach course over southern Brooklyn at 2,700 feet, which is 1,000 feet higher than the lowest level of clouds. We won't be able to see the runway until we're around Williamsburg, Brooklyn, when we break out of the lowest level of clouds, which is why we have to listen to the controller and fly an instrumented approach today. The view is lacking until around 2 to 3 minutes before touchdown today. As we get closer to New York Bay, we're told to descend to 5,000 feet.
Delta 1020, descend to maintain 5,000.
Descend to 5,000, Delta 1020.
The controller lets us know that our current heading is the heading we'll use to intercept the runway localizer, or extended centerline of the runway.
Delta 1020, intercept the localizer on that heading.
Intercept the loc for 4 on this heading, Delta 1020.
And soon after that, we're told to reduce our speed to 210 knots, and once we get to that speed, we can descend to 3,000 feet.
Delta 1020, reduce speed to 210, then descend to 3,000.
210, then down to 3,000, Delta 1020.
There still isn't much to see, but we're approaching Brooklyn, and from our present heading, we are cleared for the approach and are told to cross green at 2,700 feet. Green is a place on the approach course 11.1 miles away from touchdown.
Delta 1020, cross green 2,700 or above, flight left 4 approach.
Cross green 27 or above, and we're cleared to the ILS 4, Delta 1020.
Once our current path intercepts the straight-in radio signal to the runway, we can turn left to join the signal all the way to the runway. But before we do that, there's just one more instruction from the approach controller to help sequence us properly between all of the other flights.
Delta 1020, reduce speed to 180.
180 speed, Delta 1020.
We slow down and prepare for the final approach. Here we are, joining the straighten approach course by making the left turn to line up with runway 4 as cleared by the approach controller. We are over New York's Lower Bay. If you want to see what this approach looks like on a clear day, check out my video called Lovely LaGuardia Landing. You can see a lot more there. We have been talking to an air traffic controller at the New York Approach Control Facility in Garden City, New York. That facility handles arrivals and departures to and from the airports in the New York area, including that United 777 that we saw before. The airspace is broken down into different sectors, and we've been talking to the controller at the LaGuardia sector since 10,000 feet. As we approach LaGuardia, it's time to leave the airspace of this controller. We are in the airspace of the control tower at LaGuardia, and now that we're fully established and line up with the runway, the approach controller tells us to contact LaGuardia Tower.
Delta 1020, contact tower, 18.7, good day.
18.7, Delta 1020.
This is the first video I've made where we're going to talk to the tower controller who can't see us, but he is relying on his radar. He is using a local radar that just shows traffic in the vicinity of the airport. There's actually no radar at LaGuardia, but in the tower, there's a feed to JFK Airport's radar which covers LaGuardia's airspace. Let's contact the tower controller at LaGuardia as we were instructed to.
Start up 1020 on the ILS 4.
So 1020, number 2, traffic's on the 4 mile final, runway 4 for land.
Clear to land 4, Delta 1020.
We were told that we were number 2 behind traffic that's 4 miles from touching down. The speed reductions that the previous controller provided us helped us with sufficient separation between us and the traffic ahead. We are cleared to land on runway 4, which is directly in front of us. We have crossed green, that point 11.1 miles from touchdown at 2,700 feet, and we are descending. Manhattan is on the left side of this plane, and if you remember from the beginning of this video, that's the reason why I chose a seat on the left side of the airplane. But we can't see anything until we break out of the clouds at 1,700 feet, which is happening now. We're finally getting sight of land. Here in Queens, we see the Williamsburg neighborhood leading to the Williamsburg Bridge, leading to the island of Manhattan on the other side of the East River. Now you can see why I chose the left side. It's for this magical moment where out of a sea of white emerges the largest city in the United States. While this view will only last for a short time, this is worth it. Just look at those amazing skyscrapers and how some of them reach up all the way to the lowest level of the cloud deck. Our pilot can clearly see the runway, and the controller who cleared us to land also can see us from his window on the top floor of the control tower. The aircraft ahead of us that the controller referenced earlier is now clear of the runway, and the runway is completely clear to accept this A321. Our landing gear is down, our flaps and speed are set, and we fly very low over densely populated areas of Queens. The population of Queens is over 2.4 million, and you can see how close everything is. If you're standing on the ground here, it's one of the most exciting places to be in New York City, as airliners fly overhead at a very low altitude. There are many places to watch planes land from here, and the closer you get to the airport, the more thrilling it is. Now, do note that there are many more transmissions occurring on the air traffic control frequencies, but this video only focuses on communications between this flight, so we can concentrate on how we specifically made it to the runway. But the pilot is also listening into ATC speak to other pilots. This helps the pilot gain situational awareness as to what's going on in the airspace. In the tower, the controller on this frequency is handling both arrivals landing on runway 4 as well as departures on the intersecting runway 13, so attention must be placed on ensuring that departures do not get clearance for takeoff when planes are landing or nearing landing on runway 4. At this point in the day, however, there are more arrivals than departures, so there's less coordination between the two runways. Generally, for each arrival on runway 4, there's one departure on runway 13, but departure traffic is very light today. Runway 4 is 7,001 feet long. Upon landing, the controller will closely monitor the flight out the window. Will the pilot of this A321 be able to stop the plane before the intersection of runway 13? If the landing roll is long and we go through the intersection, the controller will have to coordinate another runway crossing of runway 13 on the way back, leading to increased workload. But in today's case, we slow down fast and are able to clear the runway before crossing runway 13.
Delta 1020, right turn on Papa, join Bravo, ground point 7.
Papa Bravo, point 7, Delta 1020.
We were told to turn right on taxiway Papa, which leads to taxiway Bravo, and to contact ground control, known as ground point 7. We're now going to talk to another controller who is also in the control tower and stands next to the controller that we just spoke to. This controller is responsible for all aircraft on the taxiways at LaGuardia and also has responsibility to instruct aircraft to cross runways, but does not issue landing or takeoff clearance. Our pilot calls the ground controller and mentions that we will be going to gate Charlie 32 in the C terminal.
Ground up 1020 and Bravo for 32.
The controller is actually very busy and does not respond to our pilot. That's fine because he can see that we're taxiing safely straight ahead. On a second radio, not heard here, the pilot is calling the ramp controller to ensure that we're cleared into the gate. We get cleared in and we try the ground controller one more time, this time indicating that we're cleared into the gate.
Delta 1020 is cleared into Charlie 32.
Delta 1020, taxi via Bravo, Mike.
Bravo, Mike, Delta 1020.
The controller tells us to continue along taxiway Bravo and to take taxiway Mike to the gate because Mike leads to the entry point for the terminal where gate Charlie 32 is. That is the last air traffic control transmission for today's flight. All we need to do is continue along the path that we were told. Taxiway Bravo parallels runway 13, and as you can see from this video, we haven't seen any planes take off on 13. You might have noticed before we vacated runway 4, there were 4 airplanes clustered together, but they were not lined up one behind the other waiting for takeoff. These are all departing flights, but they had to wait their turn as their departure gates in the sky were experiencing traffic delays, thus leading to them being held on the ground. But of those 4, 1 aircraft was released for takeoff, and here it is now, a JetBlue A320. Once we get to taxiway Mike, we turn right as instructed, and the terminal will be directly in front of us. The pilot is on the lookout for the ground crew, ensuring that they're in position so that we can be marshaled into the gate. We need 2 wing walkers and 1 marshaller to be there, and they are. LaGuardia Airport is a very tight airport, and to make things more complex, much of the C terminal is undergoing construction. By the way, I post regular updates on my channel on the progress of construction at this side of the airport, so don't forget to watch the old ones and stay tuned for more. Well, I've made it to the terminal and I'm getting ready for the most risky portion of my trip, the car ride from the airport. There will be no controllers guiding my vehicle on the roads today. I hope you enjoyed this video showing how we found the runway with the help of air traffic control when the lowest level of clouds is at 1,700 feet. I'll be making many more videos like these where I include ATC transmissions and explanations on what they mean. In the meantime, if you haven't subscribed, please consider hitting that red button below and hit the bell button so that you're alerted as to whenever I post a new video like this. Thanks everybody!